In my last video, I talked about Germany's MIFO bills and the timing of them and how it impacts when the AI and the player goes to war. But that got me thinking, when is the best time to go to war as Germany? Now, if you're a speedrunner like me, you would probably say, I want to go to war as soon as possible because I can set a new world conquest record. But if you're a normal player, when's the best time to go to war? Well, let's look how strong each nation is as you get closer to war. As you can see from this Excel sheet, I have all the nations in Europe that you'd be going against as Germany broken down by their civilian and military factory count, army size, total divisions, and fighters. It's not exhaustive, but I think this gives you a decent idea of your strength relative to others. As a word of precaution, this Germany timeline is how I play the game. There are thousands upon thousands of different ways to play the game. So I just punched in the way I would play Germany and compared the stats relative to that. Obviously, the way you play Germany is going to be completely different than mine. So I have each of the nations individually, their strength, the combined strength of what will become the Allies, and then the German strength at the time. Down over here, you see a breakdown of the total difference in strength between the Allies and Germany themselves in terms of raw numbers. And then I have a relative percentage. So for example, under the civilian industry, the Allies combined have 105 civilian factories. Germany has 35. So Germany has a relative strength of 33% of that of the Allies when it comes to raw factory count. But the thing is, when you play as Germany, you're not going up against all these nations all at once. Poland is essentially a one-on-one battle. The Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg are again essentially a 1v3 battle. And then the final knockout blow is 1v1 versus the French. And then you have the UK, which usually only helps out in terms of fighters because they're kind of selfish and don't send any troops to help. So even though the Allies on paper are much bigger than Germany, in actuality they aren't, because most of the time you're only fighting one-on-one battles. That's why I have down here your comparison against your biggest opponent. So the game has the French starting out with double the size of military, about the same economic industry, but a much smaller military industry. This kind of helps explain how the Germans are able to catch up come 38 and 39. Next, you'll see I have various dates planned out for the campaign. The first date shown is 1 year prior to the historical invasion of Poland. I chose this date because with the way the game's set up now, unless you use exploits, you really can't do Anschluss until right about the beginning of 38. And recently, you're going to try to annex Czechoslovakia before you go to war with Poland. So I think for a normal historical playthrough, probably 1 year early is a reasonable time that you would actually try to push early. From there, I track progress every few months. So we have January of 39, May of 39, then September 1st of 39. That was the actual invasion date of Poland. Then I have a date if you want to wait until 1940. And the last date is June 1st, 1940, mainly because at this time, France is about to get rid of their disjointed government, which will make things really hard for you. And your MIFO bills, if you're choosing to do that, are probably scaled pretty high. So, of course, your numbers are going to differ than mine. The way I play Germany, I like to focus on my economy up until 38, and then only in 38 am I really building up my military industry. But even for starting so late, I found that my military caught up very quickly. Even not building up any more military factories than I started out with, my army was not only able to catch up with France, but actually beat it in terms of size. Additionally, the way I play the game, the air is more important than tanks for me. By the fall of 38, I've almost caught up with the entire Allied Air Force. In terms of relative strength against the Allies, by September 1st of 38, my economy's stronger, my military industry is a little bit weaker, but I haven't been building in it, and my army's definitely stronger, and my Air Force is doing outstanding. Okay, but what if we were to wait until next year? By January 1st, 1939, over the past few months, my economy's been fairly consistent with the rate that the Allies are growing. So there's not a huge difference between the September date and the January date. Now moving over to May of 39, closer to the historical kickoff date of World War II, you can see the relative strength of my military and Air Force has never been closer to the Allies. Okay, what about the historical kickoff date? As you can see here, the Allied powers are surpassing me in terms of growth of their civilian and military industries. And my army strength hasn't really improved all that much compared to where it was just a few months ago. Okay, but what if I wait until 1940? Would things be any better then? Actually, they get worse. That's because by 1940, the Allied powers can switch to partial mobilization if they haven't already. And you can see their civilian and military industry is really ramping up. Then looking June of 1940, relative to the Allies, I'm weaker than I was just in January. Okay, let's back up. Remember what I said. When you fight as Germany, you're not taking on all 6 of these countries at the same time. Poland is a one-on-one battle. The Benelux region is a 3v1 battle. And then France is 1v1, with the UK mainly playing a support role at this point. So while the UK is the biggest army in the game, you really don't go up against them all that much. So let's look at us head-to-head against our strongest competitor, France. At the 1940 start date, France really maxes out at 1.2 million and 1,000 fighters. From September of 38, it will take France 1 year and 9 months to grow their army by 400,000 troops and double their fighters to 1,000. Like you, France does most of its build-up from 36 to 38, and then just does marginal growth from there on out. So in terms of you one-on-one versus France, you're clearly stronger than them every time other than the start date. But looking at that September 1st date, there's one big difference between France and Germany. When you play as Germany, you have more political power than you know what to do with. You can see in this 38 start date, I could max out all my military staff. Meanwhile, France has been struggling so much with political power, they have virtually no high command or advisors. And because they have no high command or advisors, they have no doctrine. Now compare that with Germany. By September 1st, I could have tons of doctrine. This gives me a massive tactical advantage on the battlefield. And this lack of doctrine or military XP is largely true of all the other Allied powers in September. Poland has no doctrine, and the UK is only starting to get some doctrine. Compare that with our 1940 date, and you can see Poland's got the defensive part of its doctrine already done, as does England. And France is beginning to work on its defensive side as well. Keep in mind, with Grand Battle Plan doctrine, you start out focusing on defense and then only later focus on offense. By 1940, Poland also has a lot more military staff, as does the UK. France, however, has still been able to do nothing because of its political power problems. But overall, you can see Germany has the tactical advantage the earlier you go to war. Okay, looking back at my spreadsheet, from the way I play Germany, I'm strongest relative to the Allied powers earlier in 39 than I am later. This May to September area is my peak. So based on this document, going to war mid-39 is probably my best play. Let's test this out and see if it's true. Okay, I've set my war goal. I'll get my troops ready, give the AI a little bit of time to get themselves set up, and we'll test it out. Okay, everyone's in position. Let's go. To make things consistent, I'm just going to do frontline orders here. So at this point, I've capitulated Poland with almost 50,000 casualties. That's a decent bit more than I normally would get. Normally I get like, I don't know, 15 to 30. All right, let's keep rolling. Okay, you can see there, we got it done. It took right about a year though, and my casualties were pretty staggering. So clearly, based off my playstyle, a 38 start date is too early. Let's go try a different start date. Okay, here's the May 1939 start date, and this has a setup I'm a little bit more comfortable with than what I'm used to when I play the game. All right, like before, I'll give the allies a little bit of time to get set up and ready. As myself, I guess. Okay, and let's see what happens. Oh, and they're pushing through way easier now. Oh, I forgot to Lithuania got guaranteed. We'll make short work of them too. They just cruise on through here. Yeah, there was Poland with just 11,000 casualties. So a sixth of the casualties we had before. As you can see, much smoother than last time. What a difference a year makes. Okay. I had about a seventh of the casualties I had going to war. This is usually what it looks like for me when I do the historical start date of September 1st. So that looks about right. Okay, and just because I have it, let's go check out 1940 now. Okay, I have a war goal on Poland, but they're not moving their troops into position for some reason. Interesting, look at this. I've never seen the AI do this. They're just expecting me to invade, so they have drawback orders already. Interesting. I guess we'll see how it works out for them. I think it's safe to say having that fallback line didn't help. But I did suffer more casualties because I had to ram into that thing. Interesting. Okay, here's the real test. Interesting. Okay, and then that 1940 date. I lost a little bit more, but it was about the same. Well, like I pointed to before, by 38, we basically matched France. I think there's a few reasons why the 38 date was so much harder versus all the other start dates. I think one is, as Germany, I have a lot better equipment than I did back then. Like I said, when I play the game, I really don't ramp up military production till about 38. So if I go to war So if I go to war at this time in 1938, that means I still have a lot of old basic infantry equipment in my troops. So I think overall the soft attack in my troops is much less. Second, I don't have as much doctrine completed in research as I do on the further end. And then lastly, because I focus on fighters so much, you can see the difference in fighters goes from me having 75% of the Allied Air Force to very quickly matching it. So when should you go to war? Again, it just depends on your play style. Going to war in 38 might be better for you if you just rush all the military equipment. I think you want to start World War II as soon as you can while still being super effective. So as long as you can get the job done with under 100,000 casualties, I think that's a good place to start. Why? Well, you seize all that industry, and then all of a sudden, all these countries right here that had built up, the more they have built up goes straight to you. That helps you even more so you can attack the USSR when they're at their weakest, once Stalin has done all the purges and they don't have much good military personnel. The later in the game you go to war with the Soviet Union, the stronger they will be. So if you can time it to go around 1940, 1941 to go to war with the Soviet Union, that's your best bet at winning.